Hello, everyone. It's been a little while. Welcome back. My name is Gregory Q. Jenkins, and this is the Quentasia Podcast. So we are back for another season of the podcast. Happy to be here, happy to be speaking with you. I hope things are going well for you. We've got another great, exciting show for you today. So today I have with me Victor Smith. Now let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Smith. Victor is an innovative corporate consultant and program manager with a business owner mindset. He has over 20 years of experience in delivering financial services and technology solutions for clients. Throughout his career, Victor developed a specialty focus on cloud services migration and business transformation programs for M&A integration, corporate mergers, acquisitions, and he designs streamlined business processes, data and technology architecture to realize benefits for his clients' companies. Born and raised in the Bronx, New York City, Victor continuously achieved high academic standards and completed his BA at Columbia University. That's right, y'all. We got an Ivy in the house. Later on earning his MS degree from NYU Tandon School of Engineering, Polytechnic University. Victor has an affinity for the visual arts, especially photography, painting, and architecture. He has an eye for both cityscapes, and natural landscapes to capture the beauty of the moment. He shares a global perspective with a love for travel to fully experience a wide variety of language, cultures, and cuisines. Welcome to the broadcast, Victor Smith. Thank you, Victor, for stopping by.
Wow, what a warm welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Love having you here. So what I want to do, ladies and gentlemen, today, and you're going to understand why I wanted to speak to Victor on the podcast. One, I think we're going to have an interesting discussion a little bit. I read you a little bit about, his bio and his background. We're going to talk about his journey and so what he gets here. But the big topic we're going to talk about, and I know particularly for those of you in the creative community, we're going to be talking about the subject of AI. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this was going to be a different podcast than I thought it was going to be in terms of where the side I was going to come down on AI. But I attended a power breakfast that was sponsored by the Business Council of Westchester yesterday. And it was really, I think it was one of the best panels I've ever sat on. So I'm going to definitely have a different take than I would have when I originally, proposed it, when we decided that we wanted to do this meeting. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. So Victor, why don't you start off by telling people, about your background and about, a little more detail about your journey.
All right. Thanks. I would say, think of a couple pillars or building blocks to describe my journey. It's both academic excellence, creativity, family, faith, and also keeping an eye and appreciation for opportunities. How to identify opportunities, how to take advantage, how to share opportunities with people who are prepared to succeed. All of those things figure into my background and journey. And then, of course, being born and raised in New York City, you get I don't want to say a feather in your cap, but you definitely get a toughness, a resilience that is just necessary to survive and thrive in a city as diverse and has as many different aspects like New York City. So I think all of those factored into my personal perspective, my personal point of view, and it's helped me along the way. So, like growing up, I would say I was a regular kid. Um, father worked as a plumber, mother um, helped my dad grow his business, but also had other types of work with different types of companies like insurance companies and other kind of like office manager roles. And seeing how they applied those concepts and then shared what they could with us. So like there would be weekends I would go and help my father do side jobs, and then until he started his own business officially, and then they built that on, and they were very successful. But to see that entrepreneurial experience from my parents was great. And I had other cousins in the trades and aunts, uncles. So that wider family group were all progressive thinkers. But even though they worked for companies, some might work for the city, others may work for a hospital, they were always looking how to double up, how to use the opportunity because, we're from an immigrant family. My parents came to this country in the late 60s, early 70s, and decided coming to the United States would be an opportunity to build a better life than they could back home in Jamaica. Also, when we look across my wider family, many more examples of that in even other countries. So quite a few went to different European countries, namely England. A couple were in like other places like Switzerland and other parts of Europe. So they're always seeking that better opportunity, but they know it's the focus, the study, the work factor that they put in that'll help make it a good result. So that came down to us as children, and we saw that a lot.
So when you were, younger and looking for, deciding what you wanted to do in life, was technology at the forefront of your mind of what you wanted to do? Or did you kind of, find your way into technology?
Yeah, the latter. I backed into technology. Um, I tried my hand at coding at various levels. So I remember in high school, and I'm dating myself here, there was a program language called Pascal. Mm. And for me, I understood what it should do, but what I coded, it did not do. So I understood. I liked actually at that time, I was more into the hardware because we were trying to make the better video game components, or we could get the better joystick. So people would actually jerry rig certain game consoles to make them perform better, faster, or get the cheat codes. So that was an aspect of technology that was coming through the entertainment side. And a real, appreciation for that, a likeness for that, because that was what all the boys were doing, and folks that I was growing up around were really interested in the video game aspect and what were the components into those video games. So like we were able to get a computer, and some of my friends had a computer very early on. So they had like the Commodore 64 and some of those things. And beyond just getting stacks and stacks of discs with video games, they started looking into, how can I make this? How can I cheat this? How can I make this work for me better? And that's where some of them got involved in coding. And some close friends of mine, they wound up taking that love, that desire from that initial introduction, wound up building up a good repertoire, a good skill set. They wound up working for some of the top companies like Block, Square, Apple, and doing very well, building a good life for themselves from skills for a love for the games and the coding. What's behind the scenes? How does this work? That inquisitive nature opened up the opportunities and the skills that they built to build a career. For me, I backed into it. I was into economics. That was a real, like, how does this thing called economy work? How do we make money? Where does this all come from? And economics is a system of doing things at a very large scale, you say a human scale, or even global scale, but it has its local and regional aspects. So I was really interested in that. That's what I focused on when I wound up going to Columbia. And even my internships, just my interest was in economics, understanding how economics work, how it could benefit individuals, but also at larger levels, companies, organizations. So both micro and macro economics. And then that started my career in different aspects of banking. from working with like investment advisory firms, different types of investment banks that provided services to other companies, whether it be financial advisory, treasury services, FX trading, and then going into other tools that they use to assist those clients. And bit by bit, I didn't realize the pull of technology, but I thought I was going to be a trader and sit on the desk and trading like in a prop trading desk or something. But the opportunities that started to open up for me more and more leveraged my analytical capabilities and implementing new workflows, new processes, and adapting to a lot of the new regulations that were coming out at that time and building the right technology platforms to continue growing the business. So bit by bit, I became more astute and just had better success implementing the technology side, supporting these various business functions. And that's where my career took off.
And one of the things that, as I was getting to know you, that, our career paths have a lot of similarity in terms of I did not, start out in the technology side of things. I was a finance major, so not officially an economics major, but economics was a big part of my studies. But oddly enough, so when I got my graduate degree, I was also my minor was in database management systems. That turned out to be one of the best decisions that I ever made because I understood how databases worked. Back then, there was no such. Sorry, I'm dating myself. There was no such thing as a non-relational database, really. The rage was relational data. That was the newfangled technology, relational databases. And, I kind of made made a niche for myself because I worked in operations accounting. And, to pull together vast amounts of data, you really had to learn how to be good at querying data from our financial. It wasn't called a financial warehouse quite back then, but that's what it was, where we accumulated all the stats from the GL and all of our subsidiary ledger systems, and then be able to pull all that information and pull it together and make sure that you pulled the right information. Slowly but surely, I became a whiz in Access, and from Access, Microsoft Access, and then from Access, other database tools, eventually SQL and even Oracle, learning how to query Oracle databases. And those are the main, SQL and Oracle are the main databases. Well, at least they used to be. Now you've got other non-relational databases. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but anyway, that's how I started out on the accounting side. And because I was the database guy, I learned, I had some aptitude in it. And then when I became a billing manager, I started going on implementation. I started being pulled into implementation projects. And that's really what started me. And then I worked at Prudential Relocation. I still say, other than my company, sorry, I'm biased, that was the greatest job I ever had. Because back then, companies believed in training their employees. And that's really, it wasn't called business analysis back then. It was really under the moniker of process reengineering. But all of those tools that I learned in process reengineering, I now use, or at least I used to use as a business analyst. So I can sympathize and empathize with your track into technology. And I think, I've been able to do fairly well for myself going on that track. One of the things that I wanted to just briefly talk about before we move on to the AI topic is, so for a young person who is starting out today, It's impossible to totally predict. I mean, I think many of us know we have a vision of how we see our career paths playing out. I think a lot of people don't fall into that category. They're not exactly sure. But I think that there are things that you can do that kind of ensures that, whatever path you ultimately wind on, that it's a good trajectory, that it's an upward trajectory, and you give yourself room for the widest possible upward mobility that you can achieve. What would you, in thinking about on the things that you did now, looking at your present day self, what would you tell your younger self and younger workers today who are just starting their careers? What can they do to kind of make sure that they keep on a good path, whatever that path is for themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a wide range, but there are certain tenets that folks who are starting their careers early, let's say recent graduates, or even folks who are still in school in that process of educating themselves, realize that your education will come in multiple forms. It's not just the degree. It's not just saying, okay, I have a BA or I have a master's or I have a PhD or a certificate, and that's good enough. Look at it as an ongoing journey because just like you want to eat every day, right? You're supposed to exercise regularly. Keep that in mind. You're feeding your mind continuously. You don't have to be a balled out nerd to keep studying, to keep learning, and that those teachings, that understanding, will help you in many ways. So look at education, look at learning as an ongoing process, something you're always going to do, and you're going to buy out time for it. You're going to make time and identify things that you're really interested in. Another area is you have to widen out. You have to get to know people who don't look like you, don't have your same experience. Um, Learn to connect and understand and really develop good relationships with new people, different people, because those experiences, their experiences, will give you a better understanding of those cultures and people from different areas. And those are going to be your colleagues in the various organizations you work with, whether it be your direct, if it's academic or your social or your companies you work for. Having that maneuverability, that comfort zone to connect with new people, it'll open new doors of opportunity, but it keeps you connected to receive new information, to receive intel that'll give you a tremendous advantage versus others who stay in, let's say, in a myopic view of their world or a myopic worldview or a singular community. So you don't want to isolate yourself, you want to expand. There are many experiences we could draw on that personally, where those external connections are the ones that might even open doors of opportunity for you. Like I say, in my career, um, folks that didn't look like me gave me the best opportunities. Those who weren't of the standard, what you would think what your manager should look like, sound like, be like. It's the other groups that opened the opportunity for me to quickly accelerate in my career to become a principal, Series 22, Series 7, Series 20, 24, excuse me, get those licenses at an earlier stage in my career. Folks that open doors of opportunity to even understand what's happening in the financial services space as things were changing post financial crisis, to open up opportunities for finance transformation engagements in servicing clients, open up access to provide client solutions in M&A integration. It's just having that ability to develop a good rapport. And it doesn't have to be transactional. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm gonna be friends with you so I can get a job. Not necessarily the best way to go. Be helpful, be responsive, be inquisitive to show common understanding, fellow feeling, understand the culture of those folks so that you can engage and do things beyond your current immediate vantage point. So while you build up that worldview, it takes you to a higher level, so you see more. I would say that's the best thing you could do and develop those relationships. And it's beyond the standard networking. It's like really getting to know people.
I definitely agree with that, and I would add to that and say one of the things that I've been preaching to the people that I work with and to my audience is network, network, network. So, and as you said, you really in your network need to include people who don't come from the same background as you. And it's about authentic connections, to use your, how you described it. It's people know when it's, and you will know when it's an authentic connection. And those are the ones that are more, I think people think of networking, that people want to use a different word for it now. I don't care what you call it. It's the same, it's the same thing, but networking has kind of taken on a bad connotation. I was certainly not, even as an undergrad, my professors were telling me, you need to network, you need to network. And of course,
Yeah.
like a lot of young people, I was stupid and I didn't listen. So, and then, it definitely.
Let me give you an example. Here's one that I was recently thinking about. So we know there's certain connectivity between US markets, China markets, but folks may not realize that China's not a monolith. It's actually it has a very robust and diverse community within China. There are various markets, various provinces, etc. And those people have their various worldviews, even different languages, even other subcultures, right? So you may hear people term greater market, greater China market. So that's a wide swath. Okay, great. A person I went to middle school with, and he was new to the middle school. His name is Pang. We'll just call him Pang. That's his name. His family, immigrant story. His father and family came to the country. He was growing up. He had a Lower East Side story type of thing. I'm from the Bronx. Nobody expected us to be friends. Not really. Because why? Because you not like you. All right. You play basketball, but he likes wrestling. Differences. But we were cool. And I helped him out a little bit. I would say probably I lend a helping hand to help him get acclimated to the new school environment because I'd gone through the similar thing probably a year, 2 years earlier. That friendship there developed, and we've been good friends ever since. So we're talking about a good 2.5, long time now, 2.5, 3 decades going now, since middle school years to now we're in our adult years. We reconnected a couple of times after he got married, etc. Started developing his career. This guy went to MIT. He started doing real estate. I was doing real estate as well on top of the job that I had. We were swapping notes, sharing stories. And then also an opportunity opened for him to go to Hong Kong. So he moved to Hong Kong because he found that with all his accolades, he was hitting placism in his career on the state side. And he says, you know what? I can leverage this plus my, background and my multilingual skills, and I can do better abroad. So he made that move earlier on and before it became a popular thing. And that friendship continued to grow and develop and to share our stories and see each other blossom. It was just great. So that's an example. So I know if anytime I go to Hong Kong, anytime I have a person to call, pick up the phone, answer, immediate answer. And, we swap stories, we swap Q&A. Sometimes we ask each other, what's your view on this, that, what's really happening over there? What's going on? Excuse me, what's the opportunities you see? And he shares that willingly. And that's a good resource. And those are the types of connections, friendships, access to real information, access to people with true experiences and opportunities that you want to develop.
Totally agree. So I want to pivot now, and I want to get to our conversation on AI. And I'm going to preface the conversation by giving a little background. Now, you heard us today talk about, Victor talked about his background. I talked a little bit about my background. Um, Now, my next career pivot, hello, if people haven't figured it out, is I'm going into the media and entertainment world now. That's what that's what I'm focused on. And I'm building this company, Quentasia Studios. That's my company. And I'm building an independent film and television studio. I want to be the next Disney, if you will. One of the things that, a very hot topic in the industry right now is artificial intelligence. And I think many in the creative community, and I don't think the fear is totally unfounded, have a fear of artificial intelligence replacing human beings. Now, I don't have any kind of, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't read the minds of the CEOs of, the big studios and whatnot. But I do understand the pressures of being in a public company, and I do understand the temptation, if you're really not understanding where artificial intelligence is in terms of capabilities, the temptation to maybe think that, oh, well, what do we need writers for? We can just replace it with AI. Or, oh, what do we need actors for? You can pretty much describe what you want. Yeah, use generative AI to kind of create the image that you can do. But that's not really, especially, and I was going to say that was going to be my argument. Yeah, that would not be a future that I would want. And certainly there are companies who I think want to try to do that, but I don't think that will be successful. I attended this panel where you had all different kinds of companies, but they included companies that do creative work, like a video company. I'm hoping to have that gentleman on. His name is Donville Collins. I'm hoping to have him come on and do an episode. And you had people from a marketing agency, all those, doing, and they're using AI, but they explained how they were using AI. It's not to replace the humans. They use it as a starting point. Like if you want to, in the case of, develop copy for an ad, ChatGPT, and I don't mean the free version. I won't get into what you need to know about. Well, I will say this quickly. If you're using a product on the internet and it's free, just be aware you're the product.
Absolutely.
So that's why
you're giving up a ton of data.
Exactly. So just know that, everybody. You can go and click on all the free stuff you want, but you're the product. It's your data that you're agreeing to exchange. But anyway, so they use ChatGPT to kind of come up with it's like the base copy, but it doesn't understand the nuances of the particular client, the industry, and they use that to, enhance it. Same thing at a law firm. And I didn't even think about this application. If you think about electronic discovery, well, that's something that AI is uniquely, I don't think a human could ever be better than AI at electronic discovery, because you get bleary-eyed when you're going through millions of documents looking for certain terms or certain whatever. That's something that's really perfect for AI.
And that process that you just described, connects 2 points which we discussed. One is tagging, so the viewing or going through the information, tagging what's relevant, and then organizing it. So if you could think about it from a data perspective, it's both identification, categorization, and hierarchical data constructs. So if you're able to do that, you understand how that works. You can see ways that AI can make those things or make that process faster. And then you have your source document says, where did this come from? You have your source documents, you link it back to that source document. Okay, you could do discovery and go through, let's say, 10,000 documents, 1,000,000 pages in less time than you would need to hire a field of analysts to do that work. So yes, it can become very productive, cost savings, time saving. You could build businesses providing services like that, and we'll see that impact in those areas where we would think more clerical or just at straight hardcore hands-on keyboard analytical type roles. But the area where we need to be careful and where there will need to be that human expertise is when we get to application of context, whether it's a client context, industry context, regulatory context, and also we'll call it reasonable, because there's certain things that you would do toward a market of, let's say, preteens, tweens, that would be inappropriate versus if you did it for adults. And the AI may not know that. A human editor, controller will and would be able to edit any output or process steps using AI capabilities. So we have a new tool, we'll call it AI. It can do lots of things, or we can prepare it, train it to do lots of things, but there always need to be that control. Who sets those guidelines? Who gives it the context? And those roles will be needed going forward. You might see a job called AI controller. Who knows?
Who knows? But I think that's important for all those companies out there that are thinking about introducing this technology. I think that's the lens that they need to be looking at AI. It's not going to be a replacement for human, oversight. It's a tool to make the management of data easier, but it's not going to replace, a human being or even the creation of content. But there are special issues around that. I'll maybe save that for later. I don't know if we're going to have time to get into that. There's special kinds of issues that arise, and they talked about it in the panel when with AI created content, like who owns that content at that point.
Yes, and I agree with you on that. Right now, I think the simplest way to look at it is think of AI as a toolbox, right? So let's say you call, 2 examples. You call somebody to fix, let's say you have a plumbing issue, right? Pipes are clogged. You call up the plumber comes and he has a truck and he comes in with a toolbox. He starts analyzing and tells you where it is and how you're going to fix it, whatever. AI is one of those tools in the toolbox. Think about it that way. Another area, especially from a creative perspective, is AI is like having palette and different paintbrushes and paints and things you could use to create a painting. AI may be used to create the painting, but it's not the painter. The original thought, that prompt is what created the output. So even if somebody uses AI to create output, AI is responding to a question. It's not the original thought. It's not the original envisionary. So it's just like thinking like, hey, who owns a painting? The painter that envisioned it in his mind and used the pencils and the brushes and the canvas to put it together? Or do the pencils and the canvas own the painting? No, it's the painter because he had the original vision. So I think that's, as we get more familiar and using these tools, we'll see where the IP really lies and who owns that AI module that creates that output. They'll define where those things lie, whether it's certain licensing needs to be embedded. But then again, we got to look that output, ensure that it protects the IP of previous works, right? Previous creators, because you don't want to plagiarize and cut and paste. think of AI as super cut and paste. If you're not careful, you could be plagiarizing, and you want to make sure that you protect the IP of the original creators.
I like what you said, and I'm going to steal it.
Go ahead. It's yours.
AI is the painting, not the painter, and that's very tracks very similarly to what was said in this panel, and I think that's a good way to look at it. I want to take a step back for just a second and say, so you've told us about your career, how you started, and then how you slowly kind of migrated over to the technology side. But what about AI attracted you? And how is AI impacting what you do now?
All right. Attractive to AI on two threads. One, work related. Okay, I got so much on my plate. How can I automate these things to get the stuff that I may not want to spend a lot of time on to go faster? And which tools actually work well, make sense? So in the project management space, how do I annotate and manage the summarization of meetings, various types of status reporting, dashboard builds? That's where I started using tools to kind of make that process go faster, standardize it, and provide it in a way where we're not spending the time building and reinventing the wheel to show how the report should drill down to the underlying detail, et cetera, like that. But how can we leverage automation? How can we leverage these tools, which started using more and more AI features, to do that in a consistent, but in a good way that would really capture the audience and provide the right level of detail as they need it. Another way was more in a creative space in saying, okay, how can someone who's not as versed in video production or animation, how can we fast track to create a video that could be used to help sell a product or be used to help children improve their reading skills? In short, we call it video shorts. And there are more and more AI tools coming on the market that can help, that can help in that space.
And that's, especially on the creative front, that's what got me thinking differently. Like, for instance, most writers, once you get established, you have writer's assistants. And whenever one of the areas, it's not like one area, it's one of many areas, but one of the areas that I'm not versed in terms of writing, but that I want to do is making, historical based, fiction or a true story kind of thing. There are some
like a day in the life type of thing.
Well, there's some characters in the music world. I'm not going to say who because I don't want anybody to steal my idea. That particularly in the jazz world, that I want to tell their story, and I don't believe there are books about some of the famous jazz artists, particularly out of the Chicago. Well, they're not. Excuse me, I said jazz. I meant blues. Blues artists, particularly out of the Chicago blues scene. There's definitely books about this individual, but there's no movie, about her life, and that's something I would very much want to do. But there's an art to being able to. The very first thing I have to do, this person is no longer living, so now I have to go into the archives and look at every story that was ever written about her, track down family members, and
people who performed
with
her
exactly, or people who were in her circle, so I can get an idea and a sense of who this person was, because you have to find where the story is. AI is a perfect tool to help with that, because again, if you just wanted to say find me every article ever written about this person. That's something, if you have the right large language, model as a database, that's something that is that is uniquely tailored to do. And again, it's not replacing the writer's assistant. What that's going to do for the writer's assistant is synthesize, well, here are, and even if you come up with a ranking system to say, yeah, you got 1 million articles, but I would concentrate on these because it has this level of information. If you give it that criteria so that it knows how to rank it, then that's something it can do very easily, as opposed to having a human writer's assistant do that. So that's not replacing the writer's assistant. That's giving that writer's assistant a tool. And then they can come to me and say, well, here's the possible source material. And then I can make a decision. Well, do I want to license that? Because do I want to base my story heavily upon what's here? Or are we going to do something totally different and, do fictional? That's the application of AI that I can see that's definitely non-threatening, but it would be an enhancement to the process, making it better. I'm going to assume from your comments that you don't view AI necessarily as evil. What is your hope for AI? Where would you like to see that technology go?
I have a couple diverse thoughts about what we can do, what we can accomplish with AI. I do think it will, as it becomes more and more pervasive in the applications and the tools we use, it will force a change in certain organizations and certain roles. So just like right now, if somebody told you, "Oh, I work for a typist pool," or just say, "I'm a clerk," depending on the industry, that carries different variations. Outside of the judicial clerk, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm an office clerk, I file," or "I do filing," or somebody just says, "I'm in the typist pool, I receive a memo and I type it up." Those types of roles are going to be gone. If they're not gone already, it's going to be gone. Why? Because people could do it themselves. These tools will help folks position and develop and create those type of documents and that type of information in a much faster way. So those roles, which used to be clerical or beginning analyst roles, will need to step up a bit. And as you mentioned, learn to use AI tools to accomplish more output of the same type of work. I also think there's a capability for it to assist in the creative and innovative process, but it will not take over creativity and innovation. And the biggest thing is what nobody's really talking about it yet, but it's about the original thought. The original thought, the initiative to ask the question in the right context. Right now, that's 100,000% human. Maybe in the future, they might have some derivations that says, "Oh, because I'm an AI in the medical space, I can think about this XYZ cancer treatment or this new thing." But right now, we're using this tool to help human discovery, to help human creativity, and to do it faster, right? So that's why you talk about prompts. It's a human prompting it because the human has the initial vision and wants to see what types of outputs they can work with to kind of accelerate that creative process. I think what we'll need to do is to train people, and I hope this is where we could get a lot more diversity in it, train people on how to create these learning models in the right way so it doesn't get infused with biases that held us back in the past, right? It doesn't repeat the same bad actors, right? Or trends that would tend to isolate or discount people from various backgrounds. So if we could get people trained in the right way to build the models and train the models really well, that's great. Also, we'll need to train people on how to use these tools. So just as we've all learned so quickly how to use a smartphone, right? Mm-hmm. if we could train people to use AI the way they use the apps on their smartphone, make it intuitive and beneficial, I think it's greenfield. And yes, there's downside to it, but those are related more to the human aspects of how humans want to use this tool rather than the tool itself.
It's clear to me. I mean, AI it's neither good nor evil. It's a tool.
Yeah.
And it depends on how you use that tool, what the effect is. The effect could be good or evil, but that depends on how you use the tool. And one of the things that while you were speaking that occurred to me in terms of, okay, so if I'm a clerical person, okay, maybe I'm getting a little nervous now because I see these tools and my job as it currently exists, there may not be a need for my job. But if we are thinking ahead, right? So somebody dictated something that needs to be transcribed, right? We start there. So there was an original thought. The transcription part, I don't need a human to do. If we can get transcription down where it's not doing weird things with the words, it would be well. But where there can be value now is, again, that clerical person now, that's is the human prompt. Because they have
AI
that
controller.
Relationship, right? Because they have that relationship with the person who originated the document. They know how that person thinks. They know what they want. They then can be the one using the AI tool to say, here's what I want you to spit out, but in this context, because they know their boss. And that's the value they provide, is they're providing that context to that AI tool so that it's actually doing the work the way that they want it to do it. That's how I can see maybe a possible application for people, so that, and maybe it's a little, and if you can learn how to use your iPhone, I think you can learn how to use AI.
Absolutely.
So don't have to be, nervous about that.
No, and I think also there was a time where everybody was focused on saying, oh, you got to code, you got to learn to code. But then it was like, okay, code what? What language? What aspect? For what industry? What applications would you be building? I think with AI, we get to simplify that question. So yes, there are going to be technologists. We call them data scientists, your engineering, technology, whatever title we want to put on it in the technology realm, in STEM,
right,
that will build the tools that we use to generate and structure our learning models, the LLMs and other types of AI models that will come to market. But then it's the other coding is, how do we manage these in our business settings, right? So you have folks that can then use those tools in a very proficient way to be so much more productive in their day-to-day jobs and help their businesses grow.
Totally agree. And well, I think this has been an absolutely great discussion. I hope that, I know for me, this week has been a transformative week. At the beginning, if we had taped this show at the beginning of the week, this would have been a very different show. I had a very.
You'd have been debating. Oh no!
And when you pitched the idea to me, I gave you my opinion of AI.
Perseverance. That's where the resilience comes in. Yeah. Perseverance, because I think we spoke like at the beginning of the year, or if not December. It was a few months ago, and we had a slightly different. I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this in the creative space?" You're like,
but yeah. Because and I can see the dangers, but now that I think that I have more information on and more understanding, I mean, I've used ChatGPT myself, and I'm using AI tools. I'm not a storyboard artist, but when I need to kind of give a visual representation, just as a starting point of what I have in mind for a scene, and I'm not in any way trying to replace a human storyboard artist. But even for me to to communicate with the storyboard artist, I can at least start them with, an AI generated picture that says, this is kind of what I have in mind. And then have that person take that as their starting point and say, oh, well, you're looking for something like that. And it just speeds up rather
There
than
you go.
trying to
You get
pick
that
through.
acceleration. You
Yeah,
get that
exactly.
acceleration of innovation, accelerate productivity, go to market. That process could then be shrunk down to a shorter time period. And I could see it in the creative space, just like getting those, as you make your pitches, right? Getting those snippets down. If you could get a scene out there, 15 seconds, 30 seconds as part of your pitch, people visualize, oh, this is what you have in mind. Okay, well, let's tweak it here and there. It's a much more richer discussion,
Right.
right?
Because when people can see it, and certainly when you're trying to sell a story, being able to actually see the elements in the story you're talking about is so very helpful.
Yeah.
And there's where I think AI can really help. Like you said, there's some pitfalls, there's some things that we need to be careful of when it comes to intellectual property and also disclosures.
Yes. Yeah.
There's certain information you shouldn't be putting anybody's social security number in there and doing searches on that. We would hope that nobody would do that, but those are some of the things that could be an example of a very bad use
Yeah.
of
The
AI.
data security, putting that right ring fence
Right,
around the use of AI so it doesn't go outside of that border and pull data it shouldn't be using.
right.
So yeah, you don't want to see your personal bank statement show up in an AI response because it just happened to be sitting on your laptop and that's the same laptop you use to do your personal
Exactly.
finances, right? Stuff like that.
Yes.
You have
And
to,
because
that
again,
controller, those controls are so important.
yes, because the AI doesn't know that it shouldn't do that. It's just a tool.
Exactly. Exactly. It's
And
just data to it.
right. So but I think we can do that. I think it's going to take some time for us to get there. But um, I I think it's kind of like when people were, thinking about the internet. It's just a fad. It's going to go away. I don't think AI is going away. I think it's here, so we might as well, rather than run out of fear, figure out, all right, how can we use this thing to make our lives better and make sure that it's a net benefit to our business, and that's what I would encourage business owners to do. One final parting thought and this is what I'm going to start to do. Most of the tools that I use now in my social media posts, they have an AI bot. Now, I will admit that but that's me. I'm a writer, so I don't need help, or at least I don't feel like I do, need help writing copy. So I don't use it for that. But for SEO, search engine optimization, I don't know what the best keywords are for the target audience. That's something that's perfect for AI. And that's what I'm going to start using now for every post that I do. I'm going to say, here's my target audience. Tell me what the keywords are. Once you give me the keywords, I can incorporate those keywords into the article. That's my talent. I can do that.
Absolutely.
And
Hashtag Quentasia.
there you go. Thank you for that. So that's an example of how I intend to start using more AI tools going forward. Well, Victor, I thank you for taking the time. The way we work around here is, once you're a part of the Quentasia family, you're part of the Quentasia family. So we definitely would like to have you back. I'm sure there'll be more topics. We only touched the surface today, but I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman is a very interesting gentleman, not just as a technologist, but as a human being. I'm just getting to know him myself, but I think that there are other areas that you would be interested to know about him, and we're happy today to have you here, Victor, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
You're welcome. And this was a great opportunity, a great, cordial conversation, just a genuine exchange of ideas and experiences. And this is what helped grow both individuals and their networks. It's a great opportunity to share with the Quentasia family. So this is great. Thanks.
Thank you. So everybody, you have been watching and or listening to the Quentasia Podcast. I thank you for your time. Bye-bye for now, and see you next time.